I've been using Klipsch's the 5s daily for over a year, while most reviews on YouTube focus on the 5's audio quality. In this review, I'm going to reflect on my experience with their functionality and the issues I've been facing. But first, a few notes on the looks and the sound quality. I absolutely love how they look. I really like the all black matte finish, and I think the overall look is just fantastic. In fact, I actually prefer this look much more to the look of Klipsch's reference series, and I think the 5s look just much more modern and minimalistic. They also come with 2 sets of magnetic grills, which look awesome, but I prefer the naked look instead. Having said that, there's one thing that I really don't like about the look, and it is this big silver controller. I honestly think it looks ugly, and I think that it really should not be there at all, as I never use it. In terms of sound, however, I think they sound absolutely fantastic. I'm not an audiophile, but I'm rather picky when it comes to audio quality, and what I can tell you is that they sound really, really good. In fact, I'd say that the sound quality is their core strength. Worth mentioning that out of the box, they are quite bassy and miss a little of the highs, so I've used the Klipsch Connect app on my phone to adjust the EQ exactly to my liking. Next, I'm going to talk about the 3 ways I've been using the 5s. So the first way is that I have them hooked up to my TV through an HDMI cable. One end of the cable is plugged into the 5s, and the other end is plugged into my TV's HDMI ARC port. I watch TV every day, and 5s essentially work as a soundbar. The sound is coming out through the 5s, and the built-in TV speakers are silent. The other way how I'm using the 5s is through the optical input. I actually have a little external Spotify Connect streamer, so whenever I want to listen to Spotify through the 5s, I would just open up the Spotify app on my iPhone or my computer, select the little streamer as a playback device, and then play music through optical. And finally, the third way how I'm using the 5s is through the phono input. I have a turntable without a built-in preamp, so I really appreciate that the 5s have a built-in preamp, and thus I can really enjoy listening to my records through phono as well. I also want to mention the 3 ways how I'm not using the 5s. So firstly, I'm not using the USB input. I tried it, it works, but just not needed for me. Secondly, I'm also not using the aux input. Again, I tried it, it works, but I'm just not using it, not needed. And lastly, I'm not using Bluetooth as well. In fact, I really don't like streaming audio from my phone to any speakers through Bluetooth. The reason being that I just don't want my Spotify playback to be interrupted when someone calls, or I want to be able to just open up a YouTube video or listen to a voice message without interrupting the Spotify playback in the background. And I genuinely think that Bluetooth streaming to speakers in a home environment is a thing of the past. Instead, I much more prefer just having a dedicated Spotify streaming option where the music plays in the background. I can control it from my phone, but at the same time I can do anything else on my phone and listen to any other audio on my phone. Now, having talked about the ways how I'm using and not using the 5s, I think it's very important to talk about the issues and limitations. There are 3 key ones that honestly have completely ruined the experience for me, so let's talk about those. The first is an issue when watching TV. I can use the TV remote to turn on the TV, which also turns on the 5s through HDMI CEC. I can also turn off the TV with the remote, which turns off the 5s. So this works great. However, a few months ago, an issue started to occur. What happens is that when I'm watching TV, then almost every day, and sometimes multiple times a day, the 5s will just randomly shut down. And the important thing is that they're not just switching input or turning off like I could with using the 5's remote. Instead, they are just shutting down completely for good. And the only way I can sort of reset them and get them back to life is to unplug the power cord, plug it back in. Sometimes even that doesn't work. So I need to repeat the process until they will start working again. But then after some while or the next day, they will just shut down completely again and I'll need to repeat that. I've tried different HDMI cables. I've tried factory resetting the fives dozens of times, but the issue remains. In fact, at one point I thought that the cause might be my TV. It's one of the most popular OLED TVs, the LG C1. But since the issue only started occurring a few months ago and the fives are shutting down completely, I figured that the cause of the issue lies within the fives. Perhaps something just warms up and then they just shut down completely. The second issue of the fives is the fact that they are not designed to wake up automatically when audio starts playing through the inputs. So the way they are designed to work is that, let's say, whenever I want to listen to my external streamer hooked up through optical, aux, or USB, I would always need to take the fives remote and I would need to press the button and physically turn them on first. For me, this is a deal breaker. After all, we're living in a world of Apple HomePods, Sonos, Amazon Echoes, even power nodes that don't include the physical remote at all and don't require the speakers to be turned on every time I want to listen to audio. They all just wake up automatically when audio starts playing, but the fives just don't do that. And the third major issue of the fives concerns the Klipsch Connect app on my phone. You see, the way Klipsch have decided to implement the connection between my phone and the fives is through Bluetooth. So you may ask, why is this an issue? And the answer is that the way Bluetooth support has been built into phones is that if you have a paired speaker in your Bluetooth device list on your phone, then from time to time, the phone will just automatically connect to the speakers and start playing audio through the Bluetooth connection. And then in those cases, I need to sort of scramble and try to turn it off so the audio wouldn't be playing through the fives. So then you may ask, if I don't want to use Bluetooth for audio streaming to fives, why don't I just remove the fives from the Bluetooth device list on my phone? And in fact, I've done exactly that, but as a consequence, every time I want to use the Klipsch Connect app on my phone to adjust the EQ or any other setting, I actually need to re-pair the fives to my phone and Klipsch Connect app, which is extremely inconvenient. Having mentioned the issues, the question I asked myself was, how would I want them to work? Or in other words, what would be the ideal fives if I were to design them? And I ended up thinking of 3 specific changes I would make. So the first change is obviously the shutdown issue. I would make sure to revisit the internal design of the speakers and the controller board. I would probably also revisit the QA process with the goal to make sure that the speakers just don't shut down randomly. The second thing I would change is that I would definitely make them wake up automatically when audio starts playing through any of the inputs, including optical, aux, USB, or phono. And I would make that either on by default, or I would at least build it as an option into the Klipsch Connect app. I think that having this would really allow me to fully get rid of the remote for a completely remote-less use. And I think that having this would fully support the use case of connecting fives to external streamer and thus make it a really strong competitor to the HomePods, Amazon Echoes, and other smart speakers that have the network streaming capabilities built in. Which leads me to the third change I would make. That is, I would build a little server right inside the fives. Having that little server would unlock 2 things. First, I can control the fives through Klipsch Connect app right from my phone just over Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth. Obviously, this would require having an Ethernet jack at the back of the fives or a Wi-Fi module, But having this would allow users to get rid of the clunky Klipsch Connect app experience that relies on Bluetooth today. And then the second unlock would be that the little server inside could actually run a Spotify Connect service and AirPlay service or other services, which would allow streaming directly from it, and thus would completely eliminate the need of having an external network streamer hooked up to the Fives. And honestly, I think that if Klipsch would implement all of these recommendations, then the Fives would be hands down the best high-end all-in-one speakers that exist. Alright, that's all from me. This is the very first review I've ever done, so I really hope it was useful. I'd really appreciate if you could drop a comment with your feedback, questions, or suggestions. Also, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you want to see similar videos about technology in the future.